Puneeta. Thank you for joining us.
This is lovely. Thank you for having me, Geetika.
You're very welcome. First of all, congratulations on your first book, Good Food, Healthy Planet. How is it
I
feeling?
am, it is incredible. I wonder if you can see the stack behind me. I've been signing copies and it's such a tremendous feeling, Geetika, to work on something for years and then to see it come forward in the world so you can share it, right? The tangible pieces. It's not digital, it's a real book with
Yeah.
pages and a smell that can help people cook and eat in a way that's good for us and good for the planet.
Yeah,
It's a
I love
beautiful
the two
feeling.
things, maple and marigold. I need to
That's
understand
me.
how did you come up with that name, although I think I can think of. And then your website says people and planet. I wonder if P has something to do with the Punita, the letter P, right? I was thinking about it.
Hmm.
So how did you come up with the name?
Maple and Marigold was so this was many years ago. I started writing about 8 years ago at various times. I've had a few careers in my life, and we can go into that if we have the time. But a few years ago, I took a break from the work that I was doing. I was working for a a technology company that's based out west in Calgary, and I moved to Toronto and I thought, okay, this is a good time. Both the kids, my younger one was starting kindergarten, my older one was already in school. And I thought this is a good time to do something that I've always wanted to do, and that's to write. And so I started writing, then I started blogging, and then I found I needed a space to call my own in the digital space. And that's how Maple and Marigold came about, because Maple is my life in Canada with my husband and my kids. And Marigold is my roots in India because I grew up in India. I was born in India. I grew up, raised, became a young adult in India, and then, of course, uprooted and transplanted ourselves all the way to the other side of the world.
That's wonderful. I want to go back to your time spent in India. You were talking about how your father was always on the move and the family was on the move because he was in the army. We'll go back to that, but I wanted to first ask you. You wrote for the first time, and the writing journey was the first time. So, anything that you want to
Mm.
share with our viewers, any hiccups, the learning along the way.
Oh, so much learning. I would suggest, though, just start writing. I mean, I've been writing for my own self for years since I was a child. There was a time when I was seeking admission in Delhi University, looking for the right course where I would best fit. And there was a time that I thought I would be doing English honors, and that didn't work out because I got admission in my other favorite subject, which was economics. I was a numbers gal. I needed statistics and numbers and the details to figure out how the world worked. And I'm so glad I did economics for 3 years because that made me realize that I did not want to do a career in economics. And I discovered many other loves on the way. But what I will suggest for people is to try things, and the failure is really great because it's learning, right? It helps us figure out whether this is the right path or there's another one that you can now shift yourselves, change your own behavior, learn something new, and try it out. Because unless you try something, you won't know if you like it and whether it's meant to be for you or not.
Yeah, that is so true. I want to talk about how did growing up and being always on the move in India. It's so vast. It's such a big country, right? When people say, "Oh, you're from India," and I'm always saying, "Please ask me from where." Don't say I'm from India because it's so different when you go from south, east, west, and center of the country. It's all different. So please ask me. So I wanted to ask you, like, how did it make you appreciate all sorts of food cultures?
Mm.
Because you were always going from
We were
one city to
always
another
on the
city,
move.
right?
Yes. And so, exactly that question that you were saying, ask me where exactly I'm from. I never have the answer to that because for me, my dad was in the Indian Army, which basically means that every 18 months, if you're lucky, 2 years, you move. And we moved from cantonment to city to new homes, new schools. We moved, my brother and I, we got accustomed to moving. And my mom was accustomed to packing up and unpacking and settling our home, while my dad did what he did was move through the ranks in the army and find a place for us, find the schools. Like there's so much work that goes into moving a family. And thankfully we had the army for the resources to support with that. But there is still so much work personally that goes on, right? Um, and so I think what that gave me was this, I became accustomed to uprooting and transplanting. And that's a skill that holds me strong to this day, um, because we did that so much. And I saw my dad and my mom, like they were our examples that if you moved and you settled into the new place, made new friends. My mom, for her, it was if we had unpacked our boxes and if our kitchen was unpacked, then we were settled, right? If you could cook for yourself, you were settled. And that's something I take with me even now. Like after we moved to Canada, we continue to move. I've moved a few houses. We used to live in Calgary. My kids were born there. And now we're in Toronto. So we continue to move. I think Toronto is our forever home. Um, but
Yeah, I
who
hope
knows
so.
what future has, right?
I'm wondering, so when you would move from one place to another, were you always helping your mom? Where does this food love start? And what was your favorite place or your memory of like favorite cuisine when you were there in India?
Well, we moved a lot. So we lived in Mumbai, we lived in Misamari in Assam, we lived in Gujarat and in Chandigarh, like in
My
Punjab. Like
town.
we moved a lot. Yes. So yes. So if you ask me what is my favorite cuisine, I wouldn't be able to pick
Oh,
anything specific,
I
because
totally
my
get it.
mom and dad, like, right? Yeah, I mean, I am Punjabi by nature, and by genes, but I don't speak Punjabi. But I love my paranthas, which is basically whole wheat, um, rotis, flatbread with all sorts of veggies in it. I mean, my favorite would be radish, muli parantha. Oh my God, I could have that always with white butter. That's
My
a
family will
tradition.
agree with you, Punita. Everybody, all the boys will agree with you. Parantha anytime. Um,
Yes, right.
yeah,
But
totally.
I,
And
but
I
if
think
you
as
ask me
Punjabis,
what
we
is my
love
favorite,
food, right? We can be
we
going
love.
anywhere. We just love food.
Yes,
So I
yes.
have an
And I love
important,
diving into the background of how the food was grown and raised. Like to me, that is a lot of joy where I know where the food came from and what went into growing and raising it and whether the farmers were paid fairly. Like that, all of that story before the parantha or the food gets to our table, like it's so important to me. It always has been. And I think the fact that we moved uh, gave me a perspective that, I mean, I hated the move, right? Every time we would move, you'd have to leave your friends behind. This was before the world of Facebook and Snapchat. So we literally left friends behind and had to make new ones. And so you get accustomed to making new friends. So I hated that part of leaving friends behind, but I loved that it would give us as a family this new perspective into India that so many people, like you said, people think, oh, it's India, so it's the same. It's so not homogenous. It's so different. The communities and the culture is so different. And this life of moving gave me a little bit of a perspective that I really treasure today.
I think it is important, Puneeta, especially in this present time that we live in. Our minds are always scattered. There's so much going on social media. All the time, there's um, always something happening. So I think just being mindful, and when you're sitting down with your family at the end of the day and look at your plate. That's why sometimes I say I don't like watching TV. When we're eating, I don't want television or any gadget around, because just look at the food that mommy prepared or you are eating. Think
Mm,
about it. It's going in your tummy, making you healthy, and be appreciative of that. So
mm,
take the moment to appreciate and eat well. But
mm,
I'm wondering, there's so many problems around in the world. There's inflation going on, and we are always wasting food.
mm,
I don't think we realize how many times we don't finish our plate and dump it in the garbage. And there are people around in the world who don't even get one-time meal. So to
mm,
be keeping that in mind every time you eat and be grateful for it and not waste food, I think it would be very helpful if we all make that a habit.
mm,
Um, so I wanted to ask you, how can our kids learn to make good food choices
mm.
that will impact our environment and the planet?
Oh, this is so important right now, right? I mean, food waste is an enormous problem. I talk about it in my book. It's one of the pillars. I have 5 pillars in my book that I call Eating with Benefits. And one of the pillars is to reduce waste. It is such an important thing. Thankfully enough and wonderfully enough, there is a lot that we can do about reducing our waste. Because it's not just the tomatoes or the food that ends up in the bin. It's all of the resources that went into growing that bag of tomatoes, the truck and the fuel that was spent in transporting that vegetable from the farms to the warehouses to the grocery stores to our homes, the time and effort that we've spent shopping, picking, and then bringing it all home. And then guess what? 58% of the food that is grown and raised in Canada is actually thrown away. And it's a lot of that is from households and from personal lifestyle. But a lot of it is also ending up in the landfills before it gets to a person's home. So there is a lot that we can do about it. The part about our kids, though, I have to say, I know there's this whole conversation around the kids, the millennials, and Gen Zs and everything. I will say there is so much that I can learn from the younger people because they are so committed to equity and justice and climate change. I am in the climate change. I'm a climate advocate. I'm a writer, but I also am an advocate for sustainable living and climate change to do better. And the people who are doing the best right now are the kids. And that shouldn't be the case because I'm a middle aged mom. My generation, the Gen X generation, I just dated myself right here, right now. I'm 49, turning 50 very soon. My kids are 19 and 13, and their generation is incredible because they are so clued up, if I want to use a young word. They they know what's important, and they're working so hard to get what's important. Um, they know what's going on in the world and how to make a change. I think it's my generation that has to do better because we are the ones who are voting and who are bringing our political leaders back and who built this system, who are living in this system that needs to be changed urgently, immediately. So I'm
You know, I
there's a
I
lot that
always
we
feel
can
like
learn
we can
from our
always
kids.
blame our government and city and our administration, and okay, this is not done to make it right. But as community members, as you said,
Mm,
we and our youngsters around us, There's so much to learn and so much to do as individuals. I always feel that. So I remember back home we used to, I don't know if that was just in my hometown, like every neighborhood, if they don't have their own backyard, although everybody seems to have a backyard in India where you're having your own veggie garden. Um, but if somebody cannot do it or didn't have space for some reason, there would be a place in that neighborhood where people can go, socialize with each other, get to know,
Mm,
talk about the day to day problems and solutions, and grow vegetables or fruits, you know?
mm,
So that was such a nice thing. And I'm wondering if we should be doing something like that in Toronto as community members. I
mm,
just did a report and an interview. I was talking to somebody, and they mentioned that almost 11,000 people every night in Toronto are homeless. And
mm.
I don't even want to get about the food issue here then. Um, what can we do as Torontonians? Any ideas?
Well, the one thing, personally that has worked for me is to be a part, an active member of the Buy Nothing, Sell Nothing groups. So there's a few in Toronto. It's the one reason that I still like Facebook, that people can get together in a neighborhood. So everybody on our street and 2 blocks north of us and 2 blocks south of us, we're part of a group called Buy Nothing, Sell Nothing. And we're not special. There are, I believe, at least 80 such groups in Toronto, and it's still new. So there is still so much potential to include more neighborhoods in this. And what happens in this group is that, if you bought too much of something, and sometimes it's food, mostly it's not food, but it's clothes, or if you have kids, then kids outgrow things really quickly. Or if you do outdoor activities, or if you want to do outdoor activities, it's a great place to ask to borrow things, because there is no buying or selling in this group. It's literally called Buy Nothing, Sell Nothing. I believe it's a global movement. Um, and it started becoming a really important part of communities in Toronto, in the GTA area. So if you don't have one in your neighborhood, start one. There's a website, Buy Nothing, Sell Nothing. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I just absolutely love this movement so much because it has brought our neighbors together. We see each other. If you bought 2 pans and one pan is too much for you, if you don't have the space to store it, you can pass it on to a neighbor that you possibly, I'll tell you honestly, you may not have met them, because it is so easy to walk by homes or apartments and not see who's behind the doors, because our lives are busy, right? I mean, I'm not blaming anyone. With
Yeah,
kids, raising our kids, paying mortgages, we might not know our neighbors. So, starting or being an active part of a community like this, Buy Nothing, Sell Nothing, there's other ways to also bring communities together. I know people downtown Toronto who have set up their own pantries, their food pantries. And so people get together and they bought a giant fridge and they leave. And there's no judgment here, because a lot of us are struggling right now with having enough food, having enough healthy food. Sometimes you can often get access to the canned and um, the long life shelf stable items, but you
hmm,
can't always have access to fresh dairy, fresh milk, fresh veggies. And so a fridge or a pantry like that where you can share,
yeah.
um, we have a
Thank
lot.
you.
Uh, yeah, we just need to be able to connect people. I think that's what's really hard in a big city like Toronto.
Thanks, Puneeta. I didn't know about that. I'm going to check it out myself now. Thanks for sharing
Mm.
that information. And I'm going to encourage all our viewers to go and check your book and buy it. Good Food, Healthy Planet. It's available on Amazon, Chapters, and all sorts of bookstores in Toronto and
All
anywhere they
sorts
are,
of
right?
bookstores in Canada and the US, and I believe Amazon is selling it everywhere. So my mom can buy it in India too, which is wonderful.
Best of luck. We hope
Thank you
to
very much.
see you with the second book on our podcast again sometime soon. Thank
You
you for
never
your
know.
time,
You never know.
Puneeta.
It's still a dream.
Lovely talking to you.
You too, Geetika. Lovely. Thank you for having me.